5 Live Formula One.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to live coverage of the Japanese Grand Prix weekend. It's round 3 of the Formula One World Championship, and after a week off, we've travelled to everybody's favourite track in the land of the cherry blossom. It's Suzuka, and ahead of us, 1 hour's free practice running, the first practice session of the day. It's Harry Benjamin up with you in the commentary box. Down on the ground, it's Jenny Gow. Good morning, Jen.
Konnichiwa. Good morning.
Sorry, I know. I should have said that.
What a wonderful day. What a lovely location to be in. It's sunny. There's a few little clouds scudding around, but in the sunshine, it's lovely and warm. Out of the sunshine where I currently am, just in front of the McLaren garage, a little bit chilly. I've got my coat on, I've got a cardigan and a t-shirt. So yeah, if you're in the sun, beautiful. A little bit out of it, not so beautiful, but it should prove some nice running. The wind is non-existent pretty much, and Lando Norris just in front of me, number 1 car. He climbs into his McLaren. They've got some sensors on there up and down the paddock. They've got sensors, or pit lane, they've got some sensors on cars, some of them doing a lot of little tweaks and tests in this first session, and some of them just, no upgrades. They just carry on as normal. But I think most importantly, Harry, Oscar Piastri just getting belted into his car. He needs a clean, good weekend. No laps. And that's quite extraordinary. No finishes, no points on the board. What a difference a year makes for the number 81 car.
Yeah, it certainly does. But he returns to the track this weekend where he took his maiden podium back in 2023. But and actually, I found a stat. How's this for you? The first driver to score consecutive DNSs since Bruce McLaren in 1969 and the USA-Mexico back-to-back. So how's that for a stat to start your morning? Thanks, Jeb. We'll come back to you throughout the course of the next hour or so. I am not alone up in the commentary box, and alongside me all day today is British racing driver Abby Eaton. Hello, Abby. Welcome.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
5 Live debut. Big day.
Right? Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Now, Abby, for those who might not be familiar, of course, you're a racing driver yourself. You did the W Series a few years ago. You're also part of the Grand Tour team, weren't you, doing some pretty incredible test driving for them? So tell us a bit about your sort of journey up through the motorsport.
Yes, I've raced for about 24 years now. I started when I was 10 years old in go-karts, as most drivers do, a lot of the F1 drivers as well, and kind of made my way through various forms of motorsport, and had my taste of single-seaters with W Series back in 21 and 22. Enjoyed it, loved it, just being able to travel around the world with F1 and race on some fantastic Grand Prix circuits was fantastic. Main stuff that I get into is GT racing, but yeah, I've always loved watching the Formula One, and certainly this year there's been a bit of a shake-up, which has been interesting to see.
It certainly has. Yeah, well, we kind of had a week off since China, the dust to settle slightly. What have you made then of this new era of Formula One that we've come into? Lighter, more nimble cars, but of course we've got this big change on the engine side, 50% internal combustion, near enough 50% battery. That's affected the racing, it's affected qualifying. What are your thoughts as an out-and-out racer?
I don't even know where to start, to be honest. There's been so many changes.
Sorry, we've got an hour, so
just dig into it. Oh, exactly. Look, I think there's two ways of looking at it. Yes, from the purist side of it, you're going to probably get some grumbles and say that it's kind of orchestrated racing and overtaking, but with the DRS previously, you could argue that that's the same. All we've done is swap one from the other in terms of the overtaking mode, but there's no doubt in the fact that the changes with the aero, it means the cars can follow closely. Pretty much they were nose to tail for majority of the races, the last couple of races. So I think there's been some massive positives, but I think there's a few issues that kind of still need ironing out, and I think the ironing out is coming. I think with the new changes that have come in for this weekend, F1 are looking at it and looking at what we can do to make things better, but yeah, still early days.
I agree, and I think it feels like you could never get the balance exactly right, but I don't think you ever will be able to in a sport like this, where you've got some of the best teams and brands in the world all fighting for every inch of development, as we're going to get the green light on at the end of the pit lane shortly. I think you hear one of the Audis revving up. It's quite a loud engine, that Audi car, and it is indeed Nico Hülkenberg who is the first of them to head out onto the pit lane. Green light on then, and we have got this session underway. For those who wish to do a sync up, it's coming at you now. It's 59 minutes and 40, 39, 38, 37 seconds remaining. The other Audi of Gabriel Bortoleto, a bit slow off the line, everyone having to go around him, but he does get going, and they are not messing around as they all head out on track, but they will have to go very slowly because it's the virtual safety car at the moment. This is part of some testing that the FIA are doing just in the first couple of laps of practice. Jenny.
Yes, Gabriel Bortoleto in the Audi was stuck at the end, and the green light went on. His teammate Nico Hülkenberg sped away, but it wasn't quite the case for Bortoleto, so he was a bit stranded, and everyone had to work out if they could move round him or not and undertake him, I suppose, in the pit lane. So it was a bit of a kerfuffle with people on the right-hand side, the far right, doing their practice start. So they've all got away now, and the virtual safety car sign has disappeared. But it was a little bit hectic down here at the start, and if only Jonathan Wheatley had been here, the team principal, or former team principal of Audi, he probably would have sorted that out, but not to be, because he's no longer with the team and no longer at this moment in F1.
Yeah, Jenny, I mean, what have you heard running up and down the paddock? Any sniffs? Obviously the big rumour, and you mentioned this in the Checkered Flag podcast previewing the weekend, about where's Jonathan Wheatley off to. What have you heard?
Of talk, let's put it that way, about where Jonathan Wheatley will end up. Aston Martin is the most logical choice. It's had meetings. I don't think anything's been signed as of yet, so it's a little bit premature, but he has left Audi with immediate effect, so his garden, he'll be on gardening leave, will be immaculate, because it's not the first time he's had gardening leave in the last year. So he moved out to Switzerland with his wife. He will now move back to the UK and set up base there, and who knows how long he'll be sidelined for contractually. I'm sure they'll be talking, but his sudden departure, certainly for Nico Hülkenberg, was a surprise. He was in the sim, doing a sim day last Thursday, and his mum sent him a message saying, "Have you seen this?" And I can't exactly say what he said, because it would be rude, but he was surprised, let's put it that way. And Mattia Bonotto will now take over running the whole show, because it was split quite down the middle almost between what Mattia did and what Jonathan Wheatley did, and Mattia will have to take up that role now. But slightly uncomfortable in the whole situation, and quite sudden for the team as well, so they're going to have to pick up the pieces. He was only there for 1 year. It's quite short time.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Yeah, I was a bit sad to see the news of Jonathan Wheatley. I really liked seeing him as a team principal, and it seemed like he had a really good relationship with the two drivers. I mean, Abby, how would you feel as a driver, when you're especially part of a brand new project that's got big ambitions, and then you suddenly find out that your boss after 2 races is off?
I think it would take a bit of recalibration, going into a season expecting certain people in certain job roles, and, comes with a lot of credibility behind him as well. But, having said that, the right people will be put in the right places, and ultimately your job as a driver is to, drive the car as fast as you can, get the most out of the car, and I think probably the main focus for the drivers is to extract as much as they can out of the new regs.
Yeah, well, they will have to move on without Jonathan Wheatley. We will wait to see what news comes with Wheatley's future. We're currently looking, and I'm being intentionally obvious here, at one of the Aston Martins, which has a huge amount of aero raking on the back, and it's Fernando Alonso's car, but he's not actually in it. It's their reserve driver, the American Jack Crawford, who finished runner-up in Formula 2 last year. He gets his first FP1 taste of the year. Part of the rules, it's mandated that 4 sessions throughout the year, 2 per car must see a rookie driver in place, and Aston Martin have elected to put Jack Crawford in fairly early as he makes his way back to the pit lane to carry out some crucial testing, and looks like there's some front wing flap adjustment going on as he pulls into the box. Let's hear Hadjar's radio first.
The brakes are really cold and I have insane pulling. But I have an issue on the car, mate. Why is it pulling like this? I can't drive.
Brakes are really cold and he's got pulling, is what Isack Hadjar is complaining about on the radio as he makes his way into the final chicane. Does he peel into the pit lane? We won't get a look, but we're having a gander inside the Red Bull box at Richard Wood is engineer. When it comes to pulling, Abby, can you sort of imagine that sensation? Have you had that when you're in a car and you know, I suppose it's all about the balance of the car and how it's feeling right now? Yeah,
it's not exactly confidence inspiring when the car's not stable under braking. Crucially, entry to the corner, it sets you up for absolutely everything, and especially at a circuit like Suzuka, keeping that minimum speed and getting that momentum onto the nice long straights is what you need. And if you can't set up the entry right, then you've got no hope. So yeah, I'm comfortable.
Good luck for Hadjar then. First time's coming in, a 1:34.053 from Oscar Piastri. This is the sound of George Russell, who's just made his way through the left-hander of 130 yard, down through the gears into the Casio triangle, just to come back to what Abby said earlier on about a little tweak that has happened to the rules this weekend. The teams agreed at a meeting with the FIA and F1 last week that the issue of driving on the limit in qualifying would be assessed in an attempt to find improvements before the next race in Miami, which, as a reminder, is in 5 weeks' time because of the cancellations of Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. So in that context, the FIA has actually issued a change to the rules for this weekend's race in Japan that reduces the total amount of energy that cars can recover in one lap from 9 megajoules to 8. Now, the essential reasoning behind this is that it will mean the drivers and cars have to do less recovery during a qualifying lap, as one of the Red Bulls, it was Hadjar, has a big snap. We're just seeing a replay of it coming through the final corner. We heard him on the radio a few moments ago complaining about the overall balance of that car. Not looking happy in these early stages is the Frenchman. But we can cross over now to our BBC F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. Good morning, Andrew.
Morning, Harry and Abby.
Lovely to hear your voice, Andrew. Are you enjoying what Japan has to offer so far?
Yes, it's really lovely here. The sun's out. It's a bit chilly when you're not in the sun, but there's nothing not to like about this race, really, apart from the crazy travel schedule and all the rest of it that's involved with getting here.
The good old Kintetsu line and the train tickets are always one to...
You're very familiar with it, Harry, aren't you? Yes.
I'm scarred for life. But look, let's talk about... I just mentioned this tweak to the amount of energy that can be recovered in a lap, down from 9 megajoules to 8. So, I mean, is this a big impact that it's going to have this weekend, Andrew? What have you gleaned?
Well, so as Abby was saying, there's some definite positives to the new rules, and particularly the racing. Certainly on a surface level, lots of cars staying together, swapping positions from lap to lap because of the different battery levels. But one of the very significant negatives that I think pretty much everyone in Formula One agrees with, and the drivers are very vocal about, some of them very publicly, some of them more privately, is that the need to manage energy all the time has compromised qualifying to a very significant degree. And it's particularly pertinent this weekend because, as everybody knows, Suzuka is regarded as one of, if not the most challenging tracks on the F1 calendar. But because the engine will be recovering energy at key parts of the circuit, and because of other aspects of the rules that designate what they call 0 kilowatt zones, some of the most demanding corners, so particularly the Estes, for example, and Degner's 1 and 2, have effectively, or the concern is, we have to wait and see how it is when the cars actually go out on track, when we hear from the drivers at the end of the day. They've effectively been neutered. So the cars are only running at half power through the S's, for example. So that significantly reduces the challenge for the drivers, which maybe Abby can talk about in a minute. And the same with Degner 1 and 2. That was the place where accidents were most likely to happen on this track, because Degner 1's a very, very fast flick right, where the car's very much on edge. It's very narrow there. The car gets out onto the curb, and then the driver has to brake down very quickly for a much slower corner at turn 2, which has Degner 2, which has very little runoff area. But again, the cars are recovering energy through there, so Degner 1's become flat out basically, but that's not flat out in the traditional sense of really on the edge of adhesion. It's just you're flat on the throttle and it's no problem, which therefore reduces the jeopardy for Degner 2. So by reducing the amount of energy that you can recover over a lap, which is what they've done with this reduction from 9 megajoules to 8 megajoules for this weekend, that reduces the amount of recovery you're able to do. So reduces the amount of time that you're doing that recovery, but it remains to be seen how effective it's been in resolving that fundamental issue. And it's not just an issue for Suzuka, it's one that has been front and centre really since the start of the season, and really everybody agrees it needs to be resolved. I don't think it can be resolved completely with these rules, but everybody wants to come to a point where it's resolved to some degree, so the extreme challenge of qualifying comes back. What remains to be seen is exactly how they're going to do that.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, Abby, this feels like a bit of a plaster on the problem for this weekend, but we've got this big gap coming up as well in the calendar, and maybe they can implement more changes then. But, when you're a driver, particularly in qualifying, in any level of motorsport, you want to feel like you're on the edge, right? One lap to get the most out of a car, particularly when you're within Formula One. So it must be such an alien feeling when I think Charles Leclerc has said, almost you have to go slower to go faster, which is mind-boggling. Yeah,
it's bizarre to be penalised for carrying more momentum and taking more risks, and as a driver that's what brings you the most joy, and especially in F1 with the amount of pressure you have in Q3 to really kind of maximise and get absolutely everything out of a lap, and use centimetres of exit, and that's where it all counts, and I think that's where the skill of the driver comes in as well. So it's certainly something that needs addressing. You don't want to watch qualifying and have a car kind of under the limit or look under the limit. You want to see them scrapping for every little bit that they can get.
Yeah, well, let's see. Certainly Formula One as a whole aren't happy with where qualifying is. They know there's a problem with that, and they are looking to make these changes, starting with this reduction with the amounts of energy drivers have to recover during a qualifying lap this weekend. Right, 47 minutes, 45, 44, 43 seconds remaining. It's George Russell who is quickest for Mercedes on the hard tyre, 1:32.429. Piastri second. Then comes Charles Leclerc, 3/10 between Russell and Piastri. A further 10th back is Leclerc. Antonelli fourth. Max Verstappen's fifth ahead of Lawson. Hadjar, Sainz, Hamilton and Gasly make up the top 10. Then we've got Arvid Lindblad, Behrman, Bottas, Hulkenberg and Perez, the top 15, with Colapinto, Stroll, who's been out there and done 3 laps, down in 17th. They've all set some kind of lap time out. In fact, everyone has at least made it out of the pit lane once to do a lap, but no competitive lap times on the board for Bortoleto. Crawford, Ocon, Norris and Albon as of yet, but Ocon and Albon are circulating out on track. Right, let's head back now and check in with Jenny.
Yes, I'm just in front of Lance Stroll's car, the Aston Martin. He's just getting some extra padding added to the back of his seat. These cars are incredibly uncomfortable. Both he and Fernando Alonso after China were saying how uncomfortable they are to drive. The sheer vibrations that are going through this Aston Martin, this out of sorts Aston Martin, I'll call it that at the moment. But Jack Crawford on the other side of the garage, sitting in for Fernando Alonso for FP1. As you say, part of the regulations now, the young drivers have to get a chance, and it's mandated that each driver misses a session. This one is quite apt for Fernando Alonso to have missed, even though he is here now. He's in the back of the garage with the team after the birth of his first child. So that was just this week. So it's quite convenient that actually Drac was here and able to step up and be in this session for FP1, although he has, as you said, Harry, a ton of air race on the back of his car, so they're obviously assessing what they can do. Adrian Newey deep in trying to solve the problem that is Aston Martin and this iteration of car, but they've got their work cut out, and he actually he's not here. So Adrian Newey not at the Japanese Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso is, as I said, and he'll be back in the car for FP2. But quite frankly, it's a dog of a car to try and drive, and they're not having much fun at the minute.
No, they're not. And Abby, Suzuka was and is owned by Honda. It was initially built as a Honda test track. I don't think there's going to be any significant improvements in the week off that we've had since China. It's a tough time to be a part of that team.
It is, and I think they know that the car's not where they expect it to be. They'll be hugely disappointed to come to Suzuka in this position. But the fact that Adrian has now stepped out of that team principal role and is fully focused on trying to find a solution to at least alleviate some of the problems and get some laps for the car and make the car more competitive and look after the drivers a little bit more. He's a very, very clever guy, and I'm sure if there's a solution to get around it, he'll definitely find it.
Yeah, well, Adrian Newey still managing that role as managing technical director and team principal while they figure out how that management structure looks in the future. We await to hear, but at the moment, ploughing onwards with trying to figure out their engine and chassis issues. But right now, Crawford not with the time on the board, down in 20th. Stroll in 18th and last of the time runners. Curious, actually, Jenny, I wonder if you can hear me. I wonder if I can send you on a fact-finding mission, because just having a look, Lando Norris only done the one lap and confined to the pit lane for a fair while. So I don't know if there might be some issues going on with Norris and McLaren.
I was down there at the beginning, Harry, of the session, and I'm trapped at the moment in Ferrari, so can't make it quite that far down because they're about to bring in one of the cars and do a pit stop, I'm guessing. But they're it's Lewis Hamilton that's just about to come in. That's the slight buzzer that you can hear in the back. But they sent him out for the first lap with some aero brakes on the back of the car. I just wonder if they're doing a setup tweak to get those aero brakes off, because they only normally do a couple of laps with them on. And then they'll send it back out. But I will make my way down there as soon as Lewis Hamilton gets out of my way.
Understood. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. Double DNS for McLaren in China. Lando Norris actually has lost one of his 3 allowed batteries for the season, known as the energy store. You're normally, up until this year, you've been allowed 2 throughout the year because of all the big regulation changes. They extended that to 3, and having done some analysis with McLaren and the Mercedes high performance powertrains division that supplies their engine after the issue last time out, it's irreparable. So he's down a battery, so that might well lead to a grid penalty later down the line if any more problems persist. So Norris is still very much confined to the pit lane. His teammate Oscar Piastri is out there making his way through the hairpin now as the sun shines down on that papaya McLaren. Air temperature 16.7 degrees, track temperature 36.9 degrees. Unbelievably, we're just seeing this graphic, and it is hard to wrap your head around, Abby. He has not started a Grand Prix in 2026.
Probably not a start he's particularly pleased with.
No.
Not a good start for McLaren this year. Yes, these things are probably going to happen in terms of the new regs, and with such a massive change to the power units, it's no surprise that teams are having issues. But little bit of an embarrassing start to the year for Oscar, certainly in the first round, but I'm sure he's working flat out to put that to right.
Hoping for just a smooth weekend, I think.
Yes.
For Oscar Piastri as he crosses the line. Finds a bit of time out there on the medium tyre, down in 4th place. Less than a tenth separating the top 4 as it currently stands. So pretty tight at the top, although the top 3 all went out on the hard tyre. As work continues down on the rear end of Lando Norris's McLaren. Let's just bring you up to speed with how the standings look coming into round 3 after 2 Grand Prix and a sprint, of course, that we had in China. It is George Russell who leads the championship, 51 points to his name. He is 7 clear of his teammate, who is now a Grand Prix race winner, Kimi Antonelli, second with 40 47 points. Then it's the two Ferraris, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. And Oliver Behrman rounds out the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. Over in the Constructors' standings, Mercedes lead the way, 98 points scored. They are 31 already clear of Ferrari. Then it's McLaren, Haas and Red Bull. The top 5. Racing Bulls are in 6th ahead of Alpine. Then comes Audi, with Williams picking up their first points last time out, courtesy of Carlos Sainz. They have 2 points on the board. Still yet to collect any points are Cadillac or Aston Martin down in 10th and 11th. I believe, Jenny, we might have a little update on McLaren and Lando Norris.
Yes, Lewis Hamilton kindly got out of my way, so able to free up and come down to the bottom of the pit lane where McLaren are based, because they're number 1 garage, and they're just reassembling the end of Lando Norris's car, the rear end, taking those aero rakes off as we expected, and then he'll go out. They only needed 1 lap of data, such as the data gathering of these cars when they go around a lap, and then they'll send them back out. But it was quite funny talking to both of the McLaren drivers yesterday. Obviously, what happened last time out was very unfortunate, not what the team would have wanted, not what Mercedes would have wanted really, as Oscar Piastri just comes in and revs his engine. That's just to grab back a bit of power in the battery, so when he goes back out it should be in a state of charge, but it's probably quite loud, isn't it? Sorry about that. Right, he shut up now, it's fine. So they'll push him back in, but he was saying he's learned as much as he can from watching the races, which is quite a novel approach, but one that he's had to adopt. But he's very keen to go out there and actually race and get some, not just points on the board, but get some of the knowledge that all these other drivers are talking about, because almost all of them have got some race laps under their belt, but obviously that's not the case for Oscar, and he wants to, I think, show what he can do this weekend.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jen. 38 minutes, 40 seconds to go of this first practice session of the day. That's McLaren's sort of plight then at the moment. But have to say, Abby, for Mercedes, what a start to the year it's been for them. I mean, and Kimi Antonelli, I don't want to say breakthrough performance, but it has an element of that in China, because I have to confess, I hadn't quite seen the Wonder Kid stuff yet. He had some brilliant standouts. I remember Miami last year where he put it on sprint pole, and he's clearly rapid over a lap, but it really felt like in the race on Sunday that he kind of has started to lay down a marker, and it's not, hopefully for all of our sakes, going to be an absolute walkover for George Russell this year.
Yeah, I think, when you put drivers in this position early and young, we saw it with Max, there's a lot of eyes on them, and I think it's almost people want them to fail, and it's almost like they've got to prove, actually, do you know what, this was the right decision to put them in this situation. And yeah, he didn't, last year was learning year, and the pace was there from the start, and I think it's kind of got better and better as the years progressed, and he's really come in and put the marker down this year. And him and George are a force to be reckoned with, and obviously both driving the Mercedes, which is a fantastic piece of kit, and they've nailed from the start this year. Obviously there's going to be an element, I imagine, of teams catching up at some point, but yeah, it's a fantastic start for the year for Mercedes.
Do you think we will get a good championship battle between the two? Because to be honest, it's hard to look outside anyone other than the two Mercedes drivers going for it.
Yeah.
Even if we do get development, they've already got a sizable advantage at the front. We need Kimi Antonelli to sort of be there, really, don't we? Because it does feel like George Russell's time. He's been there for so long now. He's got all that experience. He's driving incredibly well. But we kind of want a Hamilton versus Rosberg style Mercedes battle again, don't we?
Yeah, I'd like to see the pressure on both of them. Yes, George is a lot more experienced than Kimi, but I think Kimi seems to be very mature. He's attacking this year very maturely, and I'd like to see George under a bit of pressure. If it could be a two-horse race to the line, then fantastic, and potentially Ferrari might be able to pressure as they potentially bring in some developments through the year. But yeah, as many battles as we can see for that win.
Nice bit of pressure, always brings out the best in people. Lando Norris is the sound you can hear out on track, making his way up through the S's, deploying recharging. He just takes his foot slightly off the throttle as he makes his way round the right-hander of 6, now uphill as he curves left through the Dunlop curve. Bright sunny skies, blue sky overhead. First the Degner's approaches, clips the inside apex, onto the brakes, then it's Degner 2. The undulations of this track really coming to the fore there as he now brakes for the hairpin through the left-hander, coming in to the middle sector now, back onto the throttle, out there on the medium tyre, not with a lap time on the board yet, is Lando Norris as he now makes his way down the stretch towards Spoon. Turns 13 and 14, a double left-hander, and he gets it wrong and runs out wide and has to rejoin the track, losing a big chunk of time there, but continues on round down the stretch towards 130R as the front and rear wings both open for that straight line mode, that active aero activating, but that lap falling away for Norris. And meanwhile, George Russell making his way through the exact same Spoon corner on the soft tyre this time around. Pirelli bringing actually the hardest trio in the range this weekend. The C3 acting as the soft, the C2 as the medium, and the C1 as the hard. Russell fastest of anybody in that middle sector, currently down in third, currently down in second, I should say. Antonelli's in third. Charles Leclerc tops the times, but where does this put Russell? Half a second clear now at the top, with just over half an hour left to run. Not bad with Kimi Antonelli, next one over the line. Can he pip his teammate, the Italian? Not quite, but puts himself up into second. It's the two Mercedes, 1 and 2. Leclerc third, Piastri fourth, and the first of the Red Bulls is Isaac Hadjar down in fifth. And it's actually a bit of a Red Bull territory because you've got the two Racing Bulls of Arvid Lindblad in sixth, Liam Lawson in seventh, followed by Max Verstappen. Jen.
Yes, he's just about to head out from the garage. It's got a shiny pair of boots on. They're red, soft tyres, the Pirelli range, as you said. So he'll go and have some fun. He's been having a lot of fun here in Japan so far. And in fact, this week, he's been driving a lot of different cars. Took the, what was it, the 4 hours? I don't want to get it wrong. Yeah, I was thinking 24, but he's doing that later.
He's doing that later.
4 hours.
This is a build-up for him.
Yes, exactly, but he got disqualified because they made a mistake in qualifying and took too many sets of tyres. So they won the race, but then later got disqualified. So a good showing, just a shame it didn't count for anything. And then he came to Fuji, and in the pouring rain drove a Nissan, and it looked absolutely spectacular. So even if he's not running out on track, he still wants to be driving, and he loves driving so much. These regulations aren't quite his regulations, they're not his choice, and he's been the most vocal driver about it, but he just loves getting in the car, and he loves this track. He just hopes that it's not going to be a bit of a damp squib, I suppose, when he goes out there. But yeah, he's feeling in a good mood at the moment.
I mean, let's not beat around the bush, Abby. Max Verstappen is not enjoying Formula One right now, and you could tell that. I don't know if you caught it, but I managed to watch some of the Nürburgring Nordschleife race that he did, and it had some brilliant racing for the lead for quite a while. And when you sort of get those kind of endurance races, you're not expecting to go wheel to wheel for a long amount of time, but he was having a great time out there, and ultimately, even though he was disqualified, I think he still got more enjoyment out of that than he has done so far this season in Formula One.
Yeah, definitely, and ultimately the GT racing that he was doing on the weekend, that is absolutely flat out racing. Yes, in endurance racing you're supposed to look after the car that little bit more, but that's not Max's style. Every single lap for Max is a quali lap, and I think he very, very much enjoyed it, and he'll probably be feeling a little bit frustrated jumping back into an F1 car, which is absolutely bonkers to say.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But Red Bull as well, they're struggling, and actually there was a bit of question over, was it powertrain related? Obviously they've taken on a huge task this year by becoming a powertrain supplier themselves. Red Bull Powertrains, they've got this partnership with Ford, and one of the reasons Ford have even come in is because we changed the regulations. Here's Russell.
I think the wind is picking up. I'm seeing these flags.
So we are seeing 20 kph on the P2.
Bit of wind increase for George Russell, affecting George Russell on his lap there, but sounding pretty cool, calm and collected over the radio. So there's clearly some issues down at Red Bull, particularly on the chassis side, which Isaac Hadjar has picked up on, and we saw Hadjar really struggling with the car, and Max Verstappen had a few snaps in the early stages of this practice session. This is the sound of Max Verstappen making his way through the double left-hander of Spoon, and actually maybe a good time to bring in Andrew again, our BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Andrew, we've mentioned Max Verstappen isn't happy with the regulations right now, and perhaps where Formula One is at the moment, but he's not been a happy bunny this weekend either.
No, there was in the press conference yesterday that he held for the written media, before it started, he threw out a journalist, Giles Richards from The Guardian.
And it wasn't you, let's clarify.
It wasn't me. No. It was actually the words he used at the end of it, was because they had a bit of an exchange. Max said, "I'm not starting until he leaves," pointing at Richards, and Giles was asking him what it was about, and it was about a question that he'd asked to him in Abu Dhabi in the post-race press conference at the end of the season last year, as to whether he regretted the incident with George Russell in Spain, which cost him a 10-second penalty and 9 points in the championship when he'd lost out to Lando Norris by only 2. Verstappen took umbrage, not so much at the question itself, but at what he perceived to be the way.
That was George Russell just running wide at Spoon, saying that was a big moment and carrying on. But back to you, Andrew.
Yeah, as what Verstappen perceived to be the way he'd asked it, and then the expression on Richards' face while Verstappen answered it, which at the time he referred to as a stupid grin. Anyway, so yesterday he saw Richards at the back of the press conference and said, "I'm not carrying on until you leave," basically, and they had this exchange where it was quite curt from Verstappen, and in the end he just said, "Get out," and then the press conference carried on. So yeah, it's not a very usual occurrence, but and of course it's created quite a lot of controversy, quite a lot of differing opinions. Some people backing Richards' side of the situation, some people on social media I'm talking about, some people backing Verstappen inevitably, but yeah, hopefully it'll be smoothed over, because it's not a great place for anybody to be, whether that be Verstappen or Giles Richards, of course.
Well, Andrew's just not something you ever see happen. I mean, has anything like this ever happened before in Formula One?
Well, Damon Hill once used those exact words to me, Harry, you may remember.
Oh yes, in the motorhome, was it?
Yeah, because I'd broken the story that he was losing his job at the end of his what turned out to be his championship winning year, and he didn't know about it. So when I went to explain to Damon why I'd written the story, I set like one foot inside the motorhome, and he just said, "Get out, Andrew, you've made yourself look very stupid." This is a slightly different scenario for Giles Richards, obviously. It was just a question in a press conference, which Verstappen took umbrage at, but yeah, it sort of goes with the territory as a journalist. If you're doing your job properly, you're going to annoy somebody somewhere along the line. It's just the way it goes. You have to develop a bit of a thick skin.
Harry knew that story.
Yeah.
He threw you into the bus there.
We've had Damon Hill in the box, and we've done that story. It's my favourite moment. But you're lucky social media wasn't around then, Andrew.
I really am, yes.
Well, thank you for that, Andrew. As Arvid Lindblad just has a bit of a moment going through Spoon, and actually quite a few cars struggling through there. Perhaps that might be where the wind's picked up slightly, avidly, just causing some of the cars to run a bit wide, catch a driver unaware.
Yeah, it looks like the wind is pretty gusty into there, because they're all having a similar kind of oversteer moment on the way in. Luckily there is the runoff there, so that you can gather it all together. And interestingly enough, when there was the gap between Russell and Antonelli is now in first position, but when there was a gap previously, there was a big lock-up from Antonelli, which there was a good 6/10 difference there. Now there's nothing between the two, as George Russell puts it back fastest. But
you know, they're both on soft tyres. They're both the two Mercedes drivers, both done 15 laps now, so that is a like-for-like comparison. And for it to be just 26 thousandths of a second, early stages, I know track's still rubbering in at this point, but you know, coming back to our chat about Antonelli and now needing, I suppose, to really build on that momentum from China, this is exactly what he needs to be doing, really.
Yeah, definitely. It's a long season, super long. So mistakes need to be a minimum, and he needs to be there or thereabouts, chomping at the bit. Ideally, as a driver, you always want to out qualify and finish in front of your teammate. But there's a decent gap there from previous other runners there on a soft. Verstappen 7/10 away still. So huge gap.
Yeah, it is Russell on top with a 1:31.666. Then Antonelli, Charles Leclerc in third, Oscar Piastri fourth, Verstappen rounds out the top five, followed by Hulkenberg and Hadjar. Make that Norris up into sixth now as he just crosses the line, but he's out there on the medium tyre, 8/10 adrift of Russell's fastest time on the soft. Hulkenberg, Hadjar, both on the soft tyre in seventh and eighth. As are we going to get a little moment from Alex Albon? We're just seeing a replay.
That was a big moment.
He touches the wall, has a snap going into the second Degner, Abby. We're going to get a better view of it. What happened here?
Looks like a little bit of oversteer on the curb, and just went straight off actually.
Straight into the gravel, and I think there's a tap on the wall. I think the rear left is going to go and tap the barrier as he rally styles his way through the gravel, and I think he'll get away with that. The gravel will certainly take a while to be cleared out, that Williams. But
is there a snap prior?
I think he has a snap mid-corner, and that unsettles the car, and he really
just
does.
Pushes straight on.
Clout over that gravel, doesn't he? Makes his way back. I think, Jenny, you're outside Williams now.
I am. He's not made his way back quite yet. It'll take a while, and he'll probably trail a good bit of gravel as he does come back. Just going down here, actually. No, he is back in. I missed him. I must have had my head buried in the garage when he came back in. So, yes, he is back in, and it's not really trailed that much gravel in at all, so bad on me. They are extremely heavy, they know that. And actually, Alex Albon, who celebrated his 30th birthday this week, congratulations, happy birthday. He was talking about it yesterday, and, they're trying to make light of it. They still are very, keen to get this project moving in the right direction. They know their weaknesses, they know what they need to do. They've actually bought a tweak this weekend, another play with the suspension, so the flavour is all down the right hand side, especially where that suspension geometry is, to see if it's going to make any difference. But he said for his birthday he had a tiramisu birthday cake. Now that's not obviously normal, and where they normally have the cream, they replaced it with icing, but he said that's his favourite. It was delicious, but quite sweet, he said. And he said it doesn't matter, our car's so heavy, if I put on another kilogram, what's it going to do? So, there are, with these new regulations, some of the drivers have to just find the funny side, because it is painful for the likes of Williams, for Aston Martin, sometimes for Red Bull. And, OK, Max Verstappen's never going to find the lighter side of life, but not in this scenario. But I think they are having to think creatively when it comes to, especially talking to the media.
Yeah, quite possibly. You know what? I think this tiramisu birthday cake thing is a trend right now. I've seen it multiple times. Tiramisu birthday cake, you up for that?
Yeah, why not? I'm not a mad fan of coffee, but in a pudding form, I'm all right.
Yeah, so no, I'm sort of with you. I can drink coffee, but I actually don't like it in that form. But tiramisu is acceptable. Let us know. Hashtag BBC F1. At what time in the UK? 3:07 in the morning.
We needed tiramisu now, don't we?
And running wide, Charles Leclerc at Spoon, joining one of the many to run wide there. And Alex Albon, who had that moment a few moments ago, making it back to the pit lane now, just getting a few replays coming in. George Russell getting balked by one of the Cadillacs.
What's this idiot doing?
Oh, sure.
Who was that?
Perez.
Must be Perez, yeah, obviously.
And it was Sergio Perez who was rather slow on the exit out of the final chicane, but then carried on past George Russell once Russell lifted off down the start-finish straight. So a few have had some ding-dongs with Perez over the years on that front. He's down in 18th at the moment for Cadillac, with Valtteri Bottas down in 19th. Does reality start to set in now, Abby, do you think, for a team like Cadillac, where the expectations are pretty low? We've had 2 rounds now. They got 2 cars to the finish in China. They've certainly not been without their problems, but they are at the back. only Aston Martin really are behind them, but in race trim, if an Aston Martin can sort their reliability out, we expect them to be ahead of them once they eventually get there. Where are we at with Cadillac right now?
I think to come into Formula One is always going to be challenging, and as a new team there are massive lessons to learn, and especially coming into a year where there's so many changes. Effectively it should be a bit more of a level playing ground, but these teams have got many years of experience, and the only way is up. Look at it that way, look at it positively, and they've got two very experienced drivers on board, so they should be able to give the feedback and help make the changes to drag them up the grid.
They actually came together in turn 1 of lap 1 in China. Perez going into the side of it, he did hold his hands up and fess up to that, but that the whole point of having these two experienced drivers is squabbles like that don't really happen.
No.
But it did in that scenario. They were lucky to get away with it, but would there have been some stern words in the garage about that, or can you put that down to a look, wrong place, wrong time, lap 1, turn 1, 2 and 3 in China, pretty tricky anyway?
I think early in the season you've kind of got to give them benefit of the doubt. Obviously the cars, with them having the skinnier tyres and less downforce, they're going to be a little bit trickier on the first few laps, and you see that in the opening laps of the race, that there are more lockups, there are more snaps here and there. So I would say give them benefit of the doubt, but if it continues to happen through the season, then yes, ultimately the drivers need reminding of their jobs, and it shouldn't happen for two experienced drivers, but we are racing drivers all want the same piece of track at the same time.
Have you ever been told off?
Yes.
By a team boss?
Yes.
What did you do?
I think I just went out and my brain wasn't engaged.
Oh no.
So I went out, made some silly mistakes and dropped a wheel, and thankfully car was still in one piece, but I threw a position away that I very much didn't need to.
Oh god, Lawson on the radio.
Are you watching what I'm watching? It's free practice 1.
I'm not sure what he's doing here.
So that's Liam Lawson, who has just had a very bizarre moment with Carlos Sainz in the Williams. Sainz both driving quite slowly and beginning really on the exit of the second Degner, coming into the hairpin. It kinks slightly to the right at turn 10, and Sainz really drifts far over to the right, almost forces Lawson off the track, and then Lawson tucks in behind on the exit of the hairpin and is trying to find a way through, and Sainz just very much driving in the middle of the road there. So I don't know if race control might have a look at that one. Nothing really ever comes of those kind of things when it's a practice session, but might get another look at it. We're riding on board with Carlos Sainz. No, this is a different lap around, and he's coming into the hairpin. Slams on the brakes. Is there a lock-up? Yes, there is. Front left locks up, but he carries on with his day. But curious incident with Lawson there a few moments ago.
I imagine a massive conversation with his engineer was going on at that time.
And his eye wasn't on the ball, yeah. Quite possibly. It is the thing, you forget how much these drivers are having to contend with, not only now with all the new energy management systems, but even just simply having to talk on the radio in certain parts of a lap. Because, I mean, this is a really challenging circuit. Why is this one of the drivers' favourites, Abby? What stands Suzuka out as that iconic, legendary track?
I think it's just got a mixture of everything. You've got some really technical corners through the S's, as we're just watching at the moment, and then you've got the really challenging flat-out corners out the back of the circuit. So it's a real mixture of kind of bravery corners, but also technical, where precision and pinpoint accuracy is really, really important. Throw the new regs into the mix, and you've got a million things to try and juggle at the same time whilst chatting to your engineer. There's many plates you're spinning, but obviously the history of the circuit, I don't think it's ever you're never disappointed to drive around Suzuka, apart from if you're Max Verstappen at the moment with these regs.
Down in 7th at the moment is Max Verstappen. He is out there on track though, and teammate Isaac Hadjar down in 11th in the pit lane. I suppose the one that second seat at Red Bull Yuki Tsunoda, Japanese driver, first time we haven't had a Japanese driver on the grid this year. Since Yuki Tsunoda was here last year, it was a year ago he got that big promotion in place of Liam Lawson. A year on now, Lawson's still out there, but for Racing Bulls, and actually with a very solid start to the year. And I think so far from what we've seen from Hadjar, doing a very good job in that second seat, given that the overall car performance doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah, the second seat at Red Bull is always known as the poison chalice somewhat, and Hadjar proved himself in the Racing Bulls, and actually I think his mindset is absolutely right for the second driver. I think him and Max get on a lot. I think there's a lot of respect between the two of them, and his performance in the car has been really good. So fingers crossed it's the end of the poison chalice of the second seat at Red Bull.
Well, took his first career points in Formula One here last year, did Isaac Hadjar. Last Frenchman to stand on the podium in Japan, Romain Grosjean, back in 2013. But for Hadjar, it certainly was a good start to his year. Became the first Red Bull driver to get into Q3 on debut since Max Verstappen did it back in 2016. So all the hallmarks are there, and of course he had that fantastic run and scored that podium in Zandvoort last year after Lando Norris retired. But Hadjar was in a very solid fourth place, which was done on pure performance. So that, along with consistent performances throughout the year, earned him the call-up there as Piastri in the McLaren crosses the line. He's out there on the soft tyre, just finishes a lap and goes up to third, 2/10 adrift. Looking at the two Ferraris, I think they're out there now on the soft tyre. Charles Leclerc coming through into the Casio Triangle. Now Lewis Hamilton in the first sector on the soft tyre, but Charles Leclerc just has a little bit of wobble on the front end, has to balance it out, loses time, does improve, but only goes up to fourth fastest, nearly 3/10 down. Meanwhile, the sound of Lewis Hamilton as he brakes for the second Degner, fills up that battery a little bit more, then deploys it on the exit, coming towards the right-hand kink of 10 into the braking zone for the hairpin, tops up his battery almost into full before he then starts to deploy it in the run down towards Spoon Curve, getting up to over 290 kilometers an hour before he then just starts to ease off the throttle and recharge that battery once more. But for Lewis Hamilton, makes his way through Spoon. Bit of traffic in the form of Franco Colapinto's Alpine, which gets nicely out of the way. Now heads down the stretch. The active aero on that Ferrari, the front and the rear wing, both open before shutting through the left-hander of 130R, down through the gears as he continues to brake for turns 16 and 17. The chicane, out the final corner, around the final corner, finds a bit of time in that final sector, but doesn't improve his fifth place where he currently stands, over 3.5 tenths down at the moment. But of course, Abby, that breakthrough podium, can't believe you'd say that about Lewis Hamilton, ended a 27 race podium drought in China. I mean, incredible in two senses, the fact it took that long, but also incredible that Ferrari, they don't have the outright fastest car yet this year, but they've certainly produced a solid bit of kit.
I think he'll be feeling very relieved. I know you're looking on his social media over the off-season. He said it's the hardest he's trained in an off-season, and he really wanted to give it his all coming into 2026. And I think last year there probably was an element, and I know externally there's an element of pressure on, should he retire? Is it time for him to go? Is he past his best now? And I think the believers just thought all he needs is a good car underneath him. And it's nice to see him back on the podium. Obviously, he's first with Ferrari as well. So, good to see the Ferraris back on form. Whoever is not a Ferrari, or says they're not a Ferrari fan, is absolutely lying. We all want to see the prancing horse on the podium at times.
What was it? It was Sebastian Vettel, wasn't it, who said everybody's a Ferrari fan, no matter who you drive for.
Yeah.
And it's the team everybody wants to drive for.
I grew up watching my era, really, where I was locked into F1 was when Michael Schumacher was dominating. So I was definitely a Ferrari fan from a young age.
But, I mean, how good was that wheel-to-wheel battle between Leclerc and Hamilton in China? I mean, say what you want about whether some of that was legitimate, some of it was artificial. they both had a great time, and we all had a great time watching it.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, there's more overtaking, great, but it's not, the overtaking wasn't quite as we wanted it to be. But I lost track of how many times they exchanged position, and it's nice to hear from the drivers that they enjoyed it just as much as we did watching.
Well, down in 4th and 5th at the moment, Leclerc ahead of Hamilton, and outside Ferrari, it's Jenny Gow.
Yeah, it was fun talking to both Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton yesterday in the media day. Lewis saying he's just having the best time here in Japan. He always loves coming out here anyway. He spent some time in China with his mum, sightseeing and doing some really enriching things for him and his mum. And then he came here without his mum and did all sorts of things in Tokyo, including using a samurai sword with some film choreographer for weaponry that did Kill Bill, and he said that was just the best thing he's done. This is coming from Lewis Hamilton. He's done lots of cool things. He's also taken their 40 to Yokohama to a car meet.
Apparently he half organised that car meet or something.
He'd heard so much about these car meets in Yokohama, and he'd always been keen to take part in one and couldn't quite work out how to do it. He kind of assembled the troops, I suppose. And when you're Lewis Hamilton, they'll come, and if they happen to have a bright red or a Ferrari red F40 lying around for him to turn up in, it's so cool. And he was talking about China and the racing there, and he said for anyone that's talking about yo-yo racing, you have to go right back to karting. And Abby, you'll know this. When it comes to karting, a mistake, you lose a few places, maybe 4 or 5, and then you work to get it back up. And a lot of people are saying this is Mario Kart, and he was like, I love that. I grew up playing Mario Kart and all these different computer games, and it was just like his love of F1 now is so effusive. It's so nice to hear him back in love with the sport that's, made him.
That whole yo-yo racing term, I think, as Lewis points out, and I agree to it, if you all start in karting, and yes, ideally everything's the same in karting, right? Everyone gets the same bit of kit. I know that's not always the case, but on the whole, that's what it's set out to be. But that's where you would develop an inherent love for all things motorsport and racing, and that is the grassroots. Back and forth, lose 5 positions, come back again, get spun round, go back again. That's part and parcel of it. And for a long time now, Formula 1 is the pinnacle of motorsport, and it has had some incredible moments, but I do think there's a lot of rose-tinted glasses going on over the last 5-10 years where we've not had the best racing. It's not been the most interesting. But there's been some spectacular moments. 2021, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton fighting all throughout the year, regardless of the controversy. But there are only little pockets. It's never sustained across a season, in my opinion. The last most exciting season I remember outside of 21 was probably 2012, really. Surely you want consistent back and forth racing across the year.
Yeah, and ultimately it's quite rare in other forms of motorsport that if someone puts a move on you, that it's done and dusted. Whereas I think in previous years, especially with DRS, the move is and the overspeed is so great that they're gone. The move is done and you can wave bye-bye to them. Whereas that's not normal. Usually if you put a move on someone, there's always going to be another counter-attack, and there might be 2 or 3 of them, and that's what we're seeing with the racing this year. And yes, sometimes it's done by the boost button, but actually others it's not. It's just very clever regen in different times and being able to utilise that. So, strategy comes in, and effectively it's given us some really good racing.
Yeah, absolutely has. I mean, this is a debate we'll be having all throughout the year, and facing the wrong way round, it's the Williams of Alex Albon in the final chicane, but he gets himself moving again, and luckily he doesn't have very long to get back into the pit lane. And there looks like a bit of a nasty flat spot on the front right tyre. Hopefully we'll get another look about how that happened, and he's lost a bit of carbon fibre by the looks of it as well. Debris strewn across the track. I wonder if he's had a coming together with somebody, or has he perhaps hit one of the advertising bollards and that's just caused a breakup. Looks like a I'm not sure what part of the car that is. He's back in the pit lane. We're getting a good look at it. Is it front wing? Is it barge board? Let's have a look. Here he is, Alex Albon. That's the sound you're hearing. He's behind what I think is one of the Cadillacs coming through 130R. Right behind him. Moves to the inside of Sergio Perez. They're side by side, and it is contact between Perez and Albon.
I don't know if he saw me.
Albon saying, I don't know if he saw me. Perez then is ahead, turns into the right-hander. He feels the touch, gets out of it.
Oh my God, I had no idea that the Williams was next to us. He crashed into me.
Abby, what's your take on that?
That'll be a no. You definitely didn't see him. You know, I would have thought the engineer would have maybe given him a heads up that he was coming in hot. But yeah, disappointing to see, and a bit of a common denominator this year with Perez involved in incidents.
Yeah, as Albon is wheeled back into the Williams garage, front wing off. So it was very much the front left of Alex Albon going into the right side of the Cadillac of Sergio Perez, and I'm sure that will be looked into. But again, it's you know, it's a silly incident really to have in a practice session. Yeah. Both teams are struggling. Both teams, the last thing they need to be doing is crashing in a free practice session.
I genuinely think what we're seeing is drivers are kind of overloaded with everything at the moment, with it all being new and having to juggle so many things that they're forgetting to do the basics, which is keep an eye on what's going on around them. And it's not just Perez, it's other drivers getting into bother as well.
And yeah, race control saying that incident has been noted. We'll let you know if that gets upgraded at all. And so too, that incident between Sainz and Lawson from a few minutes back, also noted. So we'll keep an eye on race control and see if anything more filters through from there. But just over 4 minutes left. So into the closing stages now, Jenny, of this first practice session of the day.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton just going out on a used set of soft tyres into the sunshine of Suzuka. Just on that, Derek Warwick is the driver steward this weekend. I was actually chatting to him earlier on, and he's speaking to a lot of the drivers ahead of this event, just to try and find out, as a driver steward, what they're talking about, what's bothering them, what to look out for, because obviously it's new regulations, and this is his first time as a steward this year. So it's important for him to speak to the drivers, and he was saying the list of things that they are having to do every time they take a car out is immense. So they're learning so much, having to learn so much. He said, in my day, you just went out of the garage and went as fast as you could. So it's a very different skill set that is needed for these cars right now. Even so different from last year. And as Abby said, I think they're struggling to process all of that, the changes that they're having to make and keep an eye on the road.
We've got this 5-week gap coming up, and you know, it's longer than the summer break in August. Obviously, it's, you know, through unconventional circumstances, what's going on in the Middle East right now with both Bahrain and Saudi Arabia being cancelled. But I think if you're the teams and the drivers, you're actually looking forward to that gap, because it can give you a real chance, right, to just take stock and find a way forward before we get to Miami in May.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be a 5-week break. It'll be 5 weeks, and probably the busiest they'll be through the season. I think there's going to be a lot of sim work and a lot of simulations in terms of new bits and new things that they can do to the car. It's going to be a very busy period, and potentially when we get to Miami, we might see some big differences.
Yeah, that will be in May now. That will be the next time we get back out on track, as Max Verstappen a few moments to go, another one of the cars to find himself going wide at Spoon, turns it in, gets a snap, finds himself running out wide. Luckily, fair bit of runoff there before any gravel comes your way, but pace picking up slightly. Final laps on the board as the incident involving Albon and Perez will be investigated after the session. So they will both have to go to the stewards room on that one and talk through what happened. But I think for both parties, it will just be a case of don't let that happen again. Perez down in 19th at the moment, and in the pit lane, having made it back with Albon ahead of him, still in the pit lane. Can't see them coming back out with just 1 minute and 15 on the boards. This is the sound of Charles Leclerc, who's got a McLaren of Oscar Piastri and an Alpine of Pierre Gasly in front of him. I haven't mentioned much about the Alpine so far. They're down in 15th and 16th, Gasly and Colapinto. Double points last time out. Gasly scored points in both races so far. Colapinto took his first point as an Alpine driver in China a couple of weeks ago, even though he found himself being biffed round at turn 1 by Esteban Ocon's Haas. Alpine actually not a bad start to the year.
I think they should feel pleased with the step forward they've made from last year.
I've just gone 3 wide into turn 1 with the Ferrari, the Alpine. I think, the Alpine turned in and then quickly had to think about it again because there was a Ferrari and a McLaren to his inside. They both make it through. Tell you what, if we get anything like that on Sunday, we've won straight away. We've won up on last year already. So that was fascinating.
15 seconds to go, taking risks like that in free practice 1. We'll have that.
Yeah, we'll have that every day of the week. Thank you. But yeah, Alpine, I think, obviously they switched to, they've ditched the Renault engine. They've gone with Mercedes. That should be an automatic step up in performance.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing as we're just about to see the replay of 3 abreast into turn 1. The Alpine about to get sandwiched. I think there was good racing room there.
Yeah, 3 cars, all with perfect amount of room. There's the Alpine in the middle, the McLaren on the outside, and the Ferrari on the inside. Leclerc, Gasly, and Oscar Piastri. Lighter cars, smaller, narrower, able to go 3 wide into turn 1 at Suzuka. Here's Piastri. What do you thought of it?
Well, that didn't go well.
I thought it went brilliantly.
I do enjoy Piastri on the radio sometimes, incredibly dry.
Yes.
I think he will be fully focused on just starting a lap on Sunday. Has got some points on the board, Piastri, though, courtesy of doing a sprint race where he finished 6th, but he's down in 12th in the Drivers' Championship. Reigning world champion Lando Norris down in 6th and 15 points adrift of Ollie Behrman, who sits in 5th. But that's it. The clock has timed down to 0. Where does the time go? FP1 done and dusted, and it's advantage Mercedes. George Russell quickest with a 1:31.666 ahead of Kimi Antonelli, but not a lot between the 2 Mercedes drivers. Then it's the 2 McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton 5th and 6th for Ferrari. Red Bull, Max Verstappen in 7th, followed by Liam Lawson in 8th. Ocon was 9th ahead of Arvid Lindblad, who rounds out the top 10, all covered by a 2nd. Bortoletto and Hulkenberg, the 2 Audis just outside, followed by Hadjar in 13th. Ollie Behrman 14th, with Gasly rounding out the top 15. Franco Colapinto, his teammate, is 16th. Then it's the 2 Williams cars of Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon down in 17th and 18th. The 2 Cadillacs of Perez and Bottas, with Stroll in 21st ahead of Jack Crawford, who managed to do 11 laps in an Aston Martin, who will be handed back over to Fernando Alonso for free practice 2 in a couple of hours' time, as we just get a look at what's going on with Isaac Hadjar coming into turn 1. Let's hear from him.
The Mercedes so dangerous.
Yeah, copy that, turn 1.
One of the Mercedes feeding out of the pit lane, and Hadjar carrying a lot of speed there, almost clipping the front as he turns in. But they get away with that one. Abby, FP1 done. Big takeaways so far. What have you gleaned from first practice ahead of FP2 later on today?
The McLarens have put some laps on the board. So 22 laps for each of those. So Oscar will be feeling relieved, I think, just to get some running in the car and run through probably some of the stuff he will have done on the simulator and work out what the car needs to extract that energy. And about what we'd expect in terms of Mercedes, McLaren and Ferrari all in the mix.
Yeah, all near enough, 2 by 2. Jenny, thoughts?
Oh, it's nice in the sunshine now. We'll come back onto the other side of the paddock. Jack Crawford, very happy. He's obviously just taken his part in their first FP1 session and hands over the baton to Fernando Alonso for the afternoon. But I think, bearing in mind the state of the car, it's nice for him to go out and get in the car and just have a bit of a trundle around and see what he can add, because they go back then to the sim, and it feels like they can add a little bit more when they've actually driven the car. So yeah, he's happy.
Good work from the young 20-year-old American. About a second adrift of his teammate in the end, but very much, I don't think, chasing speed at all on that front. But good work for Jack Crawford then. I remember commentating on Jack Crawford back when he was doing Spanish Formula 3. So he's come a long way and doing a lot for flying the flag for the United States too. Okay, we're done and dusted. We will be back for free practice 2 later on. That'll be on 5 Sports Extra, 5 to 6 ahead of the green light coming on at 6 o'clock in the morning. Hope you can join us for that. But it's Advantage Mercedes, George Russell ahead of Kimi Antonelli at the end of that first free practice session. Thank you to Abby, to Jenny, to Andrew. We'll see you for FP2. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.